So let's talk about naming branched alkanes. Now in a previous video I talked about naming the carbon chains and I kept saying N. That's actually not an IUPAC name. It's very commonly used though, you're going to see those a lot more in bottles. The big reason is that kind of like most of chemistry, we have the IUPAC naming, the International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry, which is what we should be doing, but we also end up with trade names. So if you just had a 6-carbon chain, you would just call it hexane. You wouldn't call it N-hexane. The IUPAC name is hexane. So to name the branched alkanes, I am going to present you with both, recognizing that we should be using the IUPAC, but the non-IUPAC, the trade name, does show up quite a bit. So there are 3 really big shorthands that are used for naming in terms of industrial naming. So the first is the iso prefix. So you'll see this things look like isopentane, isopropyl alcohol, things like that. The iso designates a carbon with 2 methyl groups hanging off of it attached to something else. So isopropanol here, the R group is an OH. So if we see 3 carbons, sometimes we'll see the iso prefix associated with it. We also have the tertiary, or tert. The tert refers to a carbon with 3 carbons attached to it. Ergo, the tert, or tertiary, or 3 carbon, something attached to it. So tert butyl alcohol, tertiary butyl alcohol, has this functional group with the R hanging off of it. The other one is the sec. So the sec, or secondary, refers to a carbon chain that looks like this. So sometimes we'll see sec-butyl alcohol. This R group here is an OH. Be aware that these do exist and that they are out there as a shorthand, but these are not truly IUPAC naming. The way you do the IUPAC naming is actually a bit more elegant than this. So let's say you have a carbon chain. In this case, hexane chain. If hexane is the longest carbon chain, so you see 6 carbons in a row when you look at the molecule, this is going to designate what the ending of that naming is. So in this case, hexane will end it. But now we want to put a branch on this. So let's say we put a branch right there. Well, how do we designate this? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to use that meth, F, but, pent, those prefixes we saw before with the alkanes, but we're going to end it with an YL. So in this case, this is a methyl group. And we need to designate which carbon it's on. So we can start here and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or start here and say this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What we want to do is we want to pick a starting carbon on the parent chain that minimizes the numbers we associate with the groups. So if we start here, this would be 5-methyl hexane, but we want this to be a lower number. So if we start here, we make this 1, 2, this is 2-methyl hexane. Now, let's say I put second carbon on here. Well, now I have 2 methyl groups, so it actually would be 2,2-dimethyl hexane. If I put another carbon, this would be 2,2,3-trimethyl hexane. Now, the complications that come about from naming these compounds is actually figuring out what the longest carbon chain is. Because let's say for whatever reason, I put another carbon on here. Your temptation may be to say, well, it's 2-ethyl, 2,3-dimethyl hexane. And conceptually, that doesn't look wrong. So if we were to take this compound up here and rename it, assuming that this hexane chain is the longest chain, we would get 2-ethyl, 2,3-dimethyl hexane. The problem is that the longest carbon chain here is no longer hexane. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So actually it's heptane. And we have 3,3-dimethyl, 3,3,4-trimethyl heptane. So the challenge with taking these compounds and naming them is identifying the largest carbon chain, which may not necessarily be in a straight line. A lot of books like to take it, and just to make the challenge and to get you thinking about it, is they will actually make the primary carbon chain kind of wind around. And it's up to you to identify it. Now, the joy of this IUPAC naming system is that even if you name it wrong, you can draw it back again. So even if you had named this incorrectly using that as an ethyl and a methyl group, you still could rederive it. So this is kind of the nice thing about it, but it also means that you can get a wrong answer that doesn't look wrong. So in terms of these colloquialisms, be forewarned, you will still see them occasionally. So let's go back to 2,4. This compound, our 2,2-dimethyl hexane. What you will sometimes see is it abbreviated using these. So how would you abbreviate it using these prefixes? Well, first of all, you count the number of carbons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And this would be octane. Now, because we have this 3-carbon group here, we end up with something like a tert octane or tertiary octane to let us know that there's this 3-carbon group here. Now, please don't use this nomenclature. I mean, it exists. Understand that when you see the tert, you're basically writing out all the carbons with this group on it. But please, just stick to the IUPAC names because it's a lot less confusing.